What's up, guys? Adam Green here with No More News. Thank you all for joining me today, Thursday, January 16th, 2025. Huge show today, big guest. Going to be discussing the Trump inauguration, Trump's Gaza-Israel ceasefire hostage agreement, Netanyahu's new Middle East, the chances and possibilities of European unity, all types of great stuff today with my guest who had me on his podcast a few weeks ago. He put out an interesting video the other day on Twitter about the ceasefire and Trump dealing with Netanyahu and Putin. So, and I planned on getting him on right before the inauguration to kind of make some final, before the golden era of the Zionist technocrat Trump. Biden has a final speech warning about the tech oligarchy. Anyway, here's back on the show, Mr. Richard Spencer. What's up? What's up, Richard?
Hey, Adam. I'm doing well. How about you?
As good as we can be, you know. Trump's. Yeah. It's entertaining. That's the only silver lining. Plenty to talk about.
I feel like I've now finally recovered from my Thanksgiving, Christmas illness where I don't know what I caught. I probably caught COVID or something. I don't know, maybe a mild flu, but I feel like I'm now fully recovered.
Great. So what do you think about, oh shoot, got to line that up. What do you think about what's going on? What's front and center on your mind before we get into all the material that I have for today?
Well, I think the ceasefire is pretty fascinating, actually. And what we've learned from leaks from people behind the scenes, it becomes even more fascinating. And I think it's safe to be rather ambivalent about it. I'm just looking at
what leak? Hold on, what leak are you talking about behind the scenes?
Well, it's not really a leak in the sense of like a secret document or something. It's basically background information that was given to The Guardian. That's at least where I got it. I don't know. Maybe they're reproducing other people's reporting. But Peter Beaumont, and this was published yesterday, he paints a pretty fascinating picture between.
Does he say? Is it the thing that Netanyahu, that Trump overpowered Netanyahu or shook his hand real hard? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Witkoff. So Stephen Witkoff is a sort of mini Trump. He's a real estate billionaire and so on. And calling from Doha in Qatar last Friday evening after Shabbat had already begun, Witkoff announced he was coming to Israel and would meet Netanyahu, overruling the suggestion of Netanyahu's aides that they could meet once the Jewish Day of Rest was over. Witkoff, 67, a billionaire lawyer and real estate developer, insisted brusquely that they meet in the morning. So it's like, we're meeting on Saturday, bitch. I don't know. I sort of had Big Lebowski vibes went into my head as well. But
Netanyahu congratulated him, and they got 33 hostages. It's only a temporary ceasefire, and apparently the Knesset delayed the vote, so they haven't even approved it officially yet.
Yes, I did see that. That's very interesting. I mean, the take that I had on all of this was that Trump is going to have some problems with his friends more than he's going to have problems with his enemies. And what I mean by that, and the assumption here is that Netanyahu is Trump's friend, and Vladimir Putin is Trump's friend. And the other assumption is that Trump wants to get a W. He wants to present himself as a peacemaker. He wants
the Prince of Peace.
Yeah, the Prince of Peace.
Chabad gave him the award, the Prince of Peace award, for the Abraham. And now normalization with Saudi Arabia is back on the table because this type of talk also, they'll use that as a bargaining chip.
Yes. It was obviously the Abraham Accords that occurred during the first Trump administration, in which the Palestinians were left high and dry. And I think it probably led to October 7th to some degree. It was a sort of background cause of, wait a second, you guys are going to normalize relations without us. the status of Palestine won't be resolved, and yet you're going to be chummy. No deal. And I think that was a major background cause for October 7th. So my basic assumptions is that, I mean, some people in our sphere, they're like, we're headed towards World War III and it's going to be terrible. That's certainly in the cards. But my basic assumption is that Trump does want some W's. These will be W's that he'll get even among liberals, and he'll definitely get among his base. So he wants to end the war in Ukraine, and he wants to end the war in Gaza. He might very well want to end the war in Gaza because it looks so bad for Israel. I mean, you can't get past the images. We live in a social media age where you're just seeing images of children's bodies littered across a field with blood and guts and
he said as much. He said it. This is bad for Israel. They can't do it.
The worst optics possible, in fact. And so he might want to basically stop this to protect Israel. This is ultimately really bad for Israel in a way that previous Israeli campaigns weren't. And things have changed. And you better watch out, or everyone under 40 is going to turn on you, because they are the most clued in. They're sort of distanced from a lot of boomer assumptions, et cetera. So that's one of the things. I think he genuinely wants to win. He's sort of, obsessed with bombs and nuclear war and, throwing nuclear warheads into tornadoes. But I think he also likes the idea of presenting himself as this magnanimous peacemaker. And so he wants to win. The only problem here is this, which is that you mentioned that the Knesset is delaying this vote. We'll see what happens. I imagine they'll ultimately support it, but we'll see. I might be wrong on that. But nothing has fundamentally been resolved. So before October 7th, we had Gaza, which was administrated by Hamas. There were many Hamas militants in charge, part of this organization, and it was basically surrounded and ensconced in this way that it could fairly be called an open-air prison or even an open-air concentration camp in Israel. Now, we are basically in a worse position. So Gaza has been leveled. I mean, I don't know what you do with Gaza. I don't know what infrastructure still exists in Gaza. Some 30 to 50,000 people have been killed. Casualties are no doubt a multiple of that number. And I would imagine the number is it's underestimated in the sense that it's not really addressing the overall human toil, the amount of people who died by fleeing, the uncounted dead, it's a terrible catastrophe, basically. Hamas is still in charge. Hamas has reportedly recruited into its ranks replacements for all the people who died. And as I mentioned on my little live stream I did yesterday, I mean, this is something that Elon Musk, to his credit, seemed to get. He said, okay, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. If you are bombing 10 terrorists and you create 30 terrorists, that bombing is not efficient. It's not a good idea to do that. You're drowning in terrorists by doing this, in fact. And something like that has happened with Hamas. So Hamas is still administrating the region. The region is still an open-air prison, in effect, although it's a prison with bodies and rubble now as opposed to a somewhat functioning society. Nothing has been resolved. And so what is Netanyahu going to do? Is Netanyahu going to reinvade at some point? Are they going to find an excuse? There's going to be another October 7th, or there's going to be some sort of a bad action by Palestinians, or maybe a false flag, or who knows? It wouldn't put anything past him, and he's going to reinvade. I don't know. What is the status of Gaza? Nothing has been resolved. So is Israel going to outright annex it? The reporting on Trump and the Miriam Abelson donation of $100 million, which is big money, they saved Trump's ass by not just throwing him under the bus and dismissing him. They saved his ass by funding his campaign. The reporting on that is that the deal was that that Israel could annex the West Bank. This wouldn't be at all surprising. Israel annexed the Golan Heights during Trump's administration, the embassy to Israel. I mean, this is in line with what we've seen. So I believe this reporting. At least that's what people like Miriam Abelson want. So we're going to be back in another international shit show pretty soon. If they attempt something like that. This has been 30 years of liberals and the international community calling out Israel for illegal settlements. This was a big controversy during the Herbert Walker Bush administration, not even the W. Bush administration. W. Bush was ambivalent about these matters. W. Bush was more sympathetic towards the Palestinians than he gets credit for. And I hated George W. Bush when I was a young man in my 20s at the time. You look back on him, he was actually a fair dealer, at least when it came to Palestine. Now, he made all sorts of other mistakes.
Through 9/11, I don't think so.
I get it. I'm just giving him, to be overly fair, to give him some credit on this. Hamas would not have been elected if it were not for George W. Bush.
His dad withheld funding of Israel because of illegal settlements.
Yes, and that was at a point in the either late 80s or early 90s when we aren't even close to where we are now in terms of Israeli settlements on the West Bank. So that was like a drop in the bucket of what we have now. And so it's going to be an international shit show. Israel is going to feel embattled and oppressed by the international community denouncing this. We'll see if this happens. Even if the annexation doesn't happen, again, nothing's been resolved. So I feel like, Netanyahu seems to be the one who wants to resolve these things. They're not just like assassinating a few Hamas militants. They are laying waste to Gaza. Gaza is no more, in effect. The amount of hospitals, universities, living places, infrastructure that have been destroyed, it just can't be underestimated. This is a tiny country, if we want to call that, territory. There's no, you can't just like walk away and then everything's going to be fine. So I'll give Biden some credit. I mean, this was ultimately the Biden administration's peace plan. I'll give Witkoff some credit. If we believe the reporting, he twisted the arm of Netanyahu, insulted him, and so on. Trump can get some credit, but the thing is, nothing's changed. So I really don't know what to say to people. I mean, the notion that this is now over or anything like that is hopelessly naive.
I'm seeing Palestinians and, anti-Israel people like celebrating this as a win somehow, which I think is pretty ridiculous. And I see Ben Shapiro is really upset about, or not upset, but really adamant about this isn't end of the war. So there will be more war. It's not the completion of it. Miriam Adelson annexing the West Bank could be possible. I think there's going to be peace negotiations with Abbas and the West Bank for sure. But she's hosting a ball with Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, inauguration ball, the two of them for Trump. And Bezos and Musk and Miriam Adelson are all going to be right there, right behind Trump at the inauguration on Monday. Oh, yeah.
Remember when people like 2 years ago, they were like, okay, Trump, you're running, but who's going to support you? Like, who will you get to staff your administration? All the elites hate you because of J6 and more and so on. And it is just remarkable situation where, what is it? Apple and Tim Cook put $1 million into his inauguration fund. I mean, that is very surprising. Zuck has, turned face.
Yeah. It's a technocracy. It really is a Biden. We should watch the clip actually of Biden talking about the technocracy. And also, you mentioned annexing the West Bank. Well, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz were in Congress today for his confirmation hearing. Rubio commits to reversing sanctions on Jews in Judea and Samaria. Like there's sanctions. Anyway, please. And then
let's listen to that.
Okay, I haven't heard it yet, actually. Where is it? Oops, not that one.
Yeah, I did see that Ted Cruz used the Judea and Samaria. So that's code word for this is Israel. This is Greater Israel.
Can you commit to ending anti-terrorism sanctions waivers related to Palestinian terrorism and implementing sanctions against those terrorists?
Yes.
Can you commit to ending discriminatory policies, including Biden administration's secret boycott policies against Jews in Judea and Samaria?
Yes.
Did he call them secret boycott policies? So it is like not any official thing. They're just like, claiming you're not allowed, you have to do business with them. Nobody's allowed to organize to not do business. They can do that to everybody else, but
secret boycott policies against Jews in Judea and Samaria.
Yes.
And can you commit to reversing the discriminatory sanctions against Jews living in Judea and Samaria?
Again, yes. I think that the policy of it, again, without speaking out of turn, I'm confident in saying that President Trump's administration will continue to be perhaps the most pro-Israel administration in American history.
oh my God. Dude, I love how Ted Cruz is like scolding them like he's interrogating him or something on the stand. Like, will you do this? Will you serve Israel like this? Will you do this for Israel? And they're just, it's like, the answer is yes. They're just making a big like display out of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on this one. It is pretty hilarious.
Pam Bondi, the new Matt Gaetz replacement as Secretary of State, here being prayed over before her confirmation by Paula White, ultra-Zionist Trump faith
Paula
advisor.
White
Paula White.
around.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it is sort of the what's the right word to use for Pam Bondi and like Paula White? It's like the
Zionist whores.
Ultra rich white trash. I mean, I'm sorry to be that rude.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's these sort of like goofy, not terribly impressive people. I mean, to be honest, like, I don't think Pam Bondi is dumb by any stretch or whatever, but I listened to about 30 minutes of her confirmation, and it's just a bunch of talking points and platitudes. I mean, maybe that's what you have to do to get confirmed. Okay, fair enough. And she bought into all the 2020 stuff. So, and then she sort of denies it. She did the typical, dance of.
She's all over Fox News, just like groveling to Israel. The clips.
Yeah, exactly. It's these sort of like goofy whites from, and I can say this because I grew up in Texas, but like from Texas or Florida, and but they're certainly not dumb, and they're fine, I guess, but they're just sort of the embarrassing whites. They're like the whites who go to mega churches and who like donate to, Hagee's, campaigns in the Holy Land and whatever. And now they're being propped up, but they're kind of tough and right wing. So they have that going for them. There's like something a little bit attractive to them, but they're just sort of, I don't know. I really have never liked them throughout my entire life, to be honest.
Yeah, fundamentalist Zionist politicians and the people that they rub elbows with. It's abominable.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Indomitably Based with the Big Dono says, "Hail to Goy Shiach Adam and Big Spence." That's your nickname, huh? Big Spence. People call you that.
I've heard that.
He says, "Hail Ukraine, hail white people, hail victory." I guess that is the new motto now, huh?
Yes.
That's funny. And what's the opposite of hailing to Yahweh?
Hail Apollo.
Yeah. Yeah, hail Odin, hail Thor, hail the old gods. All right, here's Biden's farewell address warning about the Zionist tech cabal and Musk and Thiel and Bezos and Zuckerberg and UFC and alternative media. Oh man, we're so cooked.
That's why my farewell address tonight. I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern.
Eisenhower moment, by the way. Hold on. The Zionist technocracy industrial complex. What?
He explicitly evoked Eisenhower.
Oh, he does? Okay, I haven't watched it yet.
He did, yes.
Yeah. But Perfect. Ah, bro, he's having his Eisenhower moment, warning of the Zionist, Jesus, technocratic, industrial complex.
That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. And this is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. We see the consequences all across America.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I voted for Biden, and I would have voted for Biden twice. And I think Biden's administration was certainly better than a lot of people gave it credit for. Now, a lot of my feelings about Biden changed in the last year of his term due to October 7th in many ways, but I am sympathetic towards him. I found this address to be sad, and I mean sad in terms of pathetic. First off, he obviously has aged. He's not a drooling man with one foot in the grave. He delivered the speech, but he doesn't really have it anymore, and it's a struggle. And tripping over your words is fine. I do that as well, but he never seemed dynamic or awake or pushing forward. Secondly, I agree with you that there is this massive accumulation of power among a sort of new digital technocracy in Silicon Valley. And I
Tel
agree
Aviv.
with you. He talked about AI as possibly threatening. And what are you going to do about it? And, there was no real answer. There was the typical sort of bullshitty response from Kamala Harris about AI, that we need to make sure that the benefits of AI are enjoyed by all Americans, black or white, rich or poor or something. And it's like, that's a really nice thing to say, but that is a platitude that is meaningless. And we obviously know that's not going to happen. I would much prefer, particularly from the left, just someone to come out and say, why don't we ban AI? AI is a direct threat to the employment of a great deal of the population. AI might, if some of these theorists are right, it might try to kill us one day in order to make paper clips. Who knows? So I would much prefer just a strong response from the left, even if I might even disagree with it around the edges. That's just so much more powerful than this sort of wishy-washy, we want AI to help the middle class or something. AI actually is a serious danger, even if you don't believe that it's going to kill us, and I don't believe that it's going to kill us. AI is going to dumb the world down. It's going to, certainly lots of lawyers and accountants, maybe even doctors and nurses, technocrats might lose their job due to this. But and that's a serious thing to at least contemplate and work through. But what about the fact that no teenager is ever going to learn how to research and write an essay because it's no longer meaningful? What about the fact, I'm going to get a little artsy here, that future Americans and people around the world are just going to be listening to this boiled down sludge of AI technopop music, and there's not going to the notion of an artist is now in jeopardy. That there might not be any more real art in the future because we're just asking Gronk to create us a song or something. What about the issue of, I would imagine young men are most vulnerable to this, but women as well, dating AI robots and having no real community or intimacy or friendship with another human being, but just sort of talking to a chatbot or fucking a robo whore or whatever the hell. Why don't you just say, this is actually an extremely dangerous technology, that we should just ban. I would have even if that is a kind of overstatement, I would have so much more respect for someone who comes out like that, as opposed to the notion that this is going to help the middle class or something. That's just bullshit. And secondly, like, it's like, again, when you talk about the accumulation of power among these digital CEOs in Silicon Valley, why don't you tell me something beyond you resent the fact that they're wealthy and you want to tax them more? So like, everyone's got to pay their fair share.
Or it sounds like they were making it a racial issue too. It's like, that's not the concern with AI.
No, that race has nothing to do with AI. Yeah, but also, like,
the only thing is that they're programming it to be anti-white in a lot of cases. People have seen.
Yes, we have seen that, no doubt. But it's a much bigger issue than even just that. But with the Silicon Valley people, the issue is not that we want to tax them more so they're like poorer or something. The issue, like, the big issues with Silicon Valley are, I am very curious to learn about the political loyalties of people like Jeffrey Sachs and Elon Musk vis-a-vis Russia. I'm very curious to learn more about that. Mm-hmm. I am very interested in the Zionist affiliations of those people. And Peter Thiel and a lot of these other Silicon Valley billionaires. I think we need to learn a thing about that, because they have so much power that they're going to direct the American government in their favor. So at the very, very least, we need to understand where they're coming from and what they ultimately want. So this idea that I simply, like, Jeff Bezos has more money than he could ever spend. And I don't give a shit if he's like skiing at the Yellowstone Club among fellow billionaires and like drives a car worth $5 million with his favorite mistress or something. I genuinely do not care, or maybe I care like a little bit, but that's not the fucking issue. If you're going to make an important statement about the dangers of an oligarchy, it's not about like they're too rich. It needs to be about like, where are they directing the United States and the world with this power? Because they're not just like Scrooge McDuck, like swimming in gold or something. They obviously have interest and they have ideals and commitments on the world stage. So I don't want to hear about them being rich. I really could not care less about how much they spent on a watch or something. That's kind of cool, if anything. But like, I want to know what they want to do to the world. And that's how they are a threat. Mm-hmm. And so this whole like Elizabeth Warren style, like just resentment of the rich, it's just, I get it on some level, but it's just kind of pathetic. And it's mid-wit tier stuff of where you can't really think about like movement and interests and commitments. And so it's just like, I can't believe that your tax accountant saved you $10 billion on your latest filing or whatever. Who gives a shit? I don't know. I
agree. The more important issue isn't that they have a lot of wealth. It's what their political ideology. Excuse me?
It's what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. And the fact that it's so consolidated, though, I think is an issue unless you're okay with a system that consolidates, all the power amongst a few of really rich people.
Right.
It's kind of a natural thing. Definitely in capitalism, it's a natural thing if you don't have socialist policies, basically.
Yeah, well, it was a natural thing in the ancient world as well. I mean, these ancient oligarchs were arguably at least far wealthier than Elon Musk vis-a-vis the average,
it's a zyogarchy. That's what we're living in.
Yeah. That's getting at something that isn't just resentment about them being wealthy.
Let's hear the rest of this. I haven't heard the last 20 seconds.
Consequences all across America. And we've seen it before. More than a century ago, But the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. They just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to. That's why my farewell address tonight.
What rules are they not playing by? Like, they act like they don't got billionaires and tech people on their side, too. It's kind of a stupid argument. A hypocritical argument.
That is definitely true. I mean, I don't know. I hesitate to say these kinds of things because I'm not a historian, but I mean, vis-a-vis the average American, wasn't like Carnegie in steel or J.P. Morgan in like oil and kerosene, weren't they kind of like wealthier than Elon Musk, like on some way? I don't know. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the American people stood up to J.P. Morgan or Rockefeller. Or, excuse me, it's Rockefeller with Standard Oil. I misspoke. The American people stood up to Rockefeller and told him to pay his fair share and play by the rules. We love getting wealthy here. This is America, but you just got to play by the rules. This is just so stupid. This is just like midwit dumbassery talk. You know?
Yeah, I wasn't very impressed with his Eisenhower moment.
No,
he should have called it the industrial complex too. He didn't. I thought that's how he would have invoked it.
Built intergenerational wealth and institutions that have long lasted their lifetime. So the idea that the American people like stood up to them or something. I mean, it's just like, give me a fuck.
We got conquered even more, if anything, since that time, right?
Yeah.
So, what's your take on this aesthetic? Here's 2017 and 2025, the new one. Smiling, no harsh lights, more young and vibrant. What do you think of this one? What's up with the cockeyed, two different eyes? I've never seen him look like that.
You're saying all the things that I thought as well. Like, it's very curious because his right eye it's almost like and this happens with age,
So it's a droop.
You sometimes have a little bit of a droopy eye. I'm sure some can be fixed, but it is just curious. It's like his eyes are looking in slightly different directions. What I noticed as well was the very harsh light. Like I'm actually using a ring light right now, and I dim it to its lowest point, and so you get a little bit of warmth. I mean, let me just do this here, like. Yeah, like you're gonna wash yourself out if you do something like this. I'll dim it back. You want to have a sort of warm light that you don't notice. You definitely notice this light, and then you can see the light reflected in his eyes. You see the front light that someone's holding. Like if do you see that? Like you see the light.
It's glistening terribly.
Eyes. So I don't like, is the white light, this harsh white light, a kind of like heavenly glow? Is that what they're going for?
Yeah, but it's like they used a filter. This almost feels like it's so lit up on the face.
Yeah.
Like a painting, a glowing painting or something.
Yeah, his hair like merges into his skin. He's no longer orange man, he's white man. But
yeah.
His hair, you can't differentiate where his forehead ends and his hair begins because the light is just bringing out all the whites.
It looks like his ear kind of has a little bit of a scar there, honestly, or that's just hair covering it.
I don't know.
It looks like a little chink right there, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that was where he was shot. Or
I wonder how much Photoshop they did on this.
If you believe the mainstream media.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I just find it a very odd choice. He's going for the scowl, but
they're all comparing it to his mugshot.
Like, it's a heavenly glow. Like,
did you see what Charlie Kirk tweeted? He said, "Daddy's home, like we're all in trouble now, and Daddy walked in the door." Is that not the gayest thing you've ever heard?
Yes, it's quite literally the gayest thing.
He's like our daddy. He's like our King David, they all say. The Prince of Peace, already coming in and having peace. And in your video, you talked about him. He's probably pretty swiftly going to do some deal with Zelensky and Putin. And so the world's going to be like, he saved us from World War III. Saved by God to save us from World War III. The Bitcoin's up. The economy's turning around. He's working on peace in the Middle East. He's the king of the world, basically.
Yes.
That's what the next few months are going to look like, I think.
I think that is what the next few months are going to look like. I've been thinking about this. You know, when Trump came in 2017, it was just immediate chaos. And you had the issue with Flynn and getting pushed out because he was talking to the Ruskies, et cetera, et cetera. You had Saturday Night Live like having its cultural moment where people were just waiting for how they were going to attack Trump and his his colleagues and so on. I think that liberal resistance has gone away. Like I whatever you want to say about Trump, and obviously you and I are highly critical. I mean, it's fair to say that he sort of killed liberalism as we know it. And
he won it over. Elon, all these guys that are with him now are former leftists. Joe Rogan.
I get it, but I'm not. I am going to remain critical of Trump, and I don't buy into this. But liberalism as a sort of stabilizing semi-elite force, the MSNBC liberalism. We are your betters. We went to better schools than you did. We got better law degrees than you. We are going to protect democracy from you on your behalf. You're welcome. That sort of patronizing liberalism of the establishment and that and of a sort of a kind of nationalism, even that they felt that Trump and crazy Trump, white lunatics are threatening. I just think that has been sucker punched. We've heard MSNBC itself is just one example, is apparently dying. You see all of these centrist critics like David Pakman, Sam Cedar, who I've always kind of liked Sam Cedar, actually, because he's smart. David Pakman can be a little bit annoying, to be honest, but they're losing viewership. They're losing relevance. There just doesn't seem to be any resistance. And SNL, I don't think, is going to go after Trump like they did before. And I think, if anything, SNL will sort of go a little bit right wing. I think
ADL and Greenblatt gave Trump and Kushner the approval.
They're going after his enemies. ADL and Greenblatt are going to go after like Antifa leftist or, pro-Palestinian forces that we're going to ship home, in coffins. Maybe not quite like that. Maybe not quite that bad, but they're going to, get rid of their student visas and prosecute them for some minor offense. Or like they're attacking his enemies, basically. That's the dynamic. They're not attacking the alt-right or the dissident right or Trumpism or MAGA. They're going to attack the enemies of Trump. And so I just don't see any resistance. Yeah. So
even Biden, not Biden. Yeah, Biden likes him now. Obama likes him now.
Yeah. Because they got beaten. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, you lose the football game. What are you going to do? Like, storm off the field and like throw your helmet at the opposing coach or whatever? No, you go and shake the hand of the guy who just defeated you. So
everybody is like getting in line behind him now.
Yes.
Everybody's getting in line. And the people that aren't are being largely crushed.
Yeah. Or they're just thrown into relevancy. I don't think liberalism as we knew it, and I'm not talking about the left in general or like liberal philosophy or whatever. I don't think liberalism as it emerged between the years 2014 and 2024 can come back. I just don't see it, and it just doesn't work. It's associated with things that are just genuinely toxic and that are no doubt blown out of proportion. But associating themselves with the transsexual issue, I mean, maybe they almost had to do it. It was almost like an inevitable development of their own ideology. But it seems to have been one of the very few culture wars that they lost. Like in my career, the long time meme about the conservatives is that they'll just lose every culture war and then claim that they won like 30 years on or even 3 years on. So, National Review will just like come out swinging against gay marriage. And then 7 years later, they'll be like, well, actually, like gay marriage is about monogamy and commitment to another person. And it's a conservative ideal when you really think about it. William F. Buckley supported Goldwater and attacked the Birchers, not because they were crazy conspiracy theorists, in fact, but because they were opposing the Vietnam War. And then by the 1980s, it's like, Vietnam, what a terrible mistake. We should never do that. And it's like, it was your terrible mistake. Like you did that. And to not take responsibility for that is sort of absurd and unserious. And you see this over and over. They lose their issues on race, miscegenation, interracial marriage, gay rights, gay marriage, and so on. And we just thought that they were going to lose the transsexual issue. Now, I try to stay as objective as possible and not just like get on a track where this is how I've thought for 20 years, so I'm going to continue to think that. I think this is one of the few times where the left lost a culture war. And on transsexuality, because it just went too far. It involved too few people. It's just too gross. And it just doesn't work. And I think they lost that. And they're going to be associated with, like men and women's sports or like a 12-year-old getting hormone therapy. And they're just going to be associated with a lot of stuff that pretty much everyone, if you really sit them down and talk about it seriously, don't like.
I saw this, Libs of TikTok, the Chabadnik princess. She says, yes. Biden's taking credit. He says, today, after many months of intensive diplomacy by the United States, along with Egypt and Qatar, Israel and Hamas have reached a ceasefire and hostage deal. My diplomacy never ceased in their efforts to get this done. I will speak more about this soon. So trying to take credit. Trump put out a similar statement, taking credit, obviously. Then the Netanyahu calls Trump, posts this, calling Trump and thanking Trump.
Yeah.
I didn't see if he also did one thanking Biden. I'm sure he probably would. He's been boys with Biden.
Yes. It's not like Biden is an anti-Zionist.
Right.
Who gets credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Hear that one?
For this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Who did the ceasefire, you or Trump?
Yeah.
Is that a joke? Oh. Thank you.
Perfect response, I think.
Yeah, see, he's actually pretty good. I don't hate Biden.
He's a good Isn't he basically like he started off as in the Senate as like a corporate shill, all the corporations in Delaware?
Yes.
And then he became like a big Zionist shill, but apparently it wasn't enough, or apparently he's just not the guy. He's not the man. He's not the Prince of Peace and the new King David.
He's not. He's too much from the past, and yeah, his career is pretty interesting. I on my YouTube feed, I just happened to see something from Biden going after Scalia, Antonin Scalia, during his confirmation hearing in the 80s, and they were talking about abortion and the right to privacy in the Constitution and so on. And so he sort of played being a liberal at times. He was a neocon during the Bush years. He goes with the flow, basically. And he's not the guy. He's not the guy. I don't think he was a terrible president, but he's not the guy.
He's not him like Trump is.
He's not him.
He's not dark. He's not dark MAGA like Trump's going to be. Did you hear the latest today, this morning? Trump posted, he says, "It is my honor to announce Jon Voight, the Hollywood actor and father of Angelina Jolie, right?
Angelina Jolie, yeah.
He's also a Noahide proponent, that Chabad Lubavitch Noahide promoter. Mel Gibson, obviously Passion of the Christ. Sylvester Stallone to be special ambassadors to a great but very troubled place, Hollywood." Has the president ever had ambassadors to Hollywood before? They will serve
ambassador to Hollywood.
yeah,
I
openly
heard about this. This sounds like a joke.
Sounds like CIA. Everybody's always like, oh, it's a CIA and, working with Hollywood. What do you call this? What's this going to be? They're just making it official? Making it ceremonial? What is going on? Special envoys to me for the purpose of bringing Hollywood, which has lost much business over the last 4 years, to foreign countries back. Oh, that's the take. Bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Yeah, we don't have any good movies. They're not making movies like they used to because of foreign countries. No, it's because of streaming mostly.
It's not because of foreign countries.
And internet.
I mean, what, Squid Game or whatever they're talking about? Like, no, they're not losing out to foreign countries. They're not making great movies anymore, but that's a much bigger issue. I had not seen this. This sounds like an Onion article. Like, it literally reads like an Onion article. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
And Mel Gibson, I mean, I like Mel Gibson as. I don't think he's a great filmmaker, but I sort of like him. I think Apocalypto is actually a very cool film that I've not seen, and I should go rewatch that.
Braveheart? I mean, Passion was a good film.
That's a kind of cool guys film. Look who's the villain in that film. Isn't it kind of interesting that it's anti-English and anti-Longshanks? I'm just saying. But I won't say that that's a bad film. I definitely
Catholics hate the
film.
English.
I know it's a very anti-English film, and Longshanks himself, I think, is a very interesting figure when you look into him. But I'm not going to say it's a bad film. Like, it's cool. I liked it when I saw it in theaters in the 90s, and like there was blood and guts and all that kind of stuff. But he's not really a great filmmaker, and he's probably best doing like high quality action movies, like Lethal Weapon or whatever.
Conspiracy Theory?
I've not seen that one.
Oh my gosh. He red-pilled everybody, man. He totally knows. He exposed it all.
It's kind of funny when I've heard about that one. I think I've seen clips where he's like, no, it's the CIA and the Illuminati, and Julia Roberts like, tell me what's happening. I need to. Yeah.
He's like, the round tables, the Council on Foreign Relations. You're Alex Jones shtick, basically. Right. He says, Hollywood's going to be back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before, all caps. These three very talented people will be my eyes and ears, and I will get done what they suggest. He's taking over Hollywood. It will again be like the United States of America itself, the golden age of Hollywood. It's just going to be the golden age of everything. Trump just going to make everything gold and put his name on it. The new Roman golden age of Edom.
It's not happening. I mean, this is one thing that Mark Brauman and I have been talking about, but it's very interesting because, one really important aspect of Apolloism, you could say, is REM theory. And one really important part of REM theory is an analysis of esoteric Hollywood, in effect. Esoteric messaging in Hollywood, a kind of mythic quality to Hollywood. And Hollywood was brilliant in its golden age, which lasted up until the, mid-'60s, of producing literate, very interesting, and very esoteric films. And I think what people are reacting to, the kind of right-wing Trump-adjacent YouTubers and so on, they're reacting to a kind of like end of the esoteric and a beginning of just an outright in-your-face, Spider-Man's black, James Bond's a woman, Luke Skywalker is a girl, this kind of, Little Mermaid and all this kind of stuff. And they're reacting to a sort of like clumsy unveiling of what Hollywood has always been about. I mean, Sunset Boulevard is one of my favorite movies. That is an anti-WASP movie. But it's not in your face. You actually have to understand that Billy Wilder is highly intelligent, and some things are behind the veil, and you have to sort of read them. But I do think that is a way of conveying a message to the audience. Citizen Kane is obviously an anti-WASP film. two of the greatest films ever made are anti-white on some very basic level. Now, that doesn't mean they're not great films, but you do have to understand what is being implied in those movies. Now, you fast forward to the mid to late 90s through 2024, and it's kind of woke Hollywood, where they're just outright making The Little Mermaid black. It's just in your face, and it's clumsy. It's very often done by Gentiles and women who don't have the intelligence of early Hollywood creators, because Hollywood is sort of over, and you have secondary, less talented people coming in. And so, like, when they, like, Hollywood's never like what are you going back to? You're going back to like an earlier age of Hollywood when it was more subtle in its meanings and was more willing to pander to a white majority population. So what we can't go back to that time. I don't know. Maybe we could in some ham-fisted way, but Hollywood's over. And it's been replaced by streaming and replaced by sludge content. And what we're
like social media,
now,
is that what you mean?
Exactly. Like what we're doing now.
TikTok. Well, not for long. TikTok's about to be banned, taken over.
Yeah, fuck TikTok, in my opinion. But anyway, what we're doing now is not sludge content. This is appealing to intelligent people who want some perspective on the world and want to think. 99% of live streaming is sludge. It is people playing video games while randomly vamping about nothing. It is truly, Seinfeld was not a TV series about nothing. It was actually like tightly written and callbacks to earlier parts of the episode or previous episodes and kind of hilarious parodies and things like this. But what we have now is truly about nothing. And so the Zoomer or millennial consumer is just why they're having a para-social relationship with some chick playing a video game and showing some boobs and talking to them like you would talk to someone at a coffee shop or a bar or a pizza parlor, just kind of shooting the shit. And that has replaced their social life. And it has even replaced their life of like seeing a narrative, you know, like to go back to the Big Lebowski, you know, say what you will about the tenets of National Socialism. At least it was an ethos. Like I have the same opinion of Hollywood. Like say what you will about the, you know, Judaic messaging of the Hollywood's golden age. At least it was a narrative. It formed a country. It formed an ethos. It told you something. Now I am highly critical.
The American dream.
The American.
We don't have the American. He should have used that line. Did he say American dream? Because he should have invoked that.
But it's you know. But like I can't help myself but like the films of Steven Spielberg because he's a great artist. Now I'm also critical of what he's actually saying in those movies, and I can examine them. But I'm never going to say he's like a bad filmmaker. He's a brilliant popular filmmaker. Stanley Kubrick is fucking insanely brilliant, you know? And so but we've lost that. So what we have now is like sludge content where there's not even Jewish esoteric messaging. It's just like watching your bros or your fake girlfriend play video games while you shoot the shit. It's like truly nihilistic. That is what is destroying Hollywood. I don't know the last Chinese movie that did well in the United States. Now that has something to do with geopolitics and sanctions or whatever. But I don't even buy it that these Chinese films, I've seen a few of them.
The Chinese are taking over Hollywood, Richard. You got to know all about it. They bought up all the companies. It's all being outsourced to China.
I'm sorry, but the Chinese, they can make visually spectacular films. They don't have the depth of the Jewish artist.
We like our movies made by Jews, not by Chinese people, Wendell, not by the Chi-Coms.
I'm here to praise Steven Spielberg and not bury him. At least it was something. At least there's depth and nuance and layering and darkness to it. The Chinese are going to create it's like they're going to do the same thing, like they create a fake Rolex or whatever. It's not the same. It lacks the essence and the core, and it's shit. It might as well be a video game or something. They're not going to replace Hollywood.
We're bringing Jesus back into Hollywood with Mel Gibson and John Voight.
He's going to bring back Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus was always in Hollywood.
I know. Well, also, think about it. Mel Gibson's just on Joe Rogan complaining about, Hollywood really hates Jesus, really hates Christians, and now Trump's announcing this. And then all the Christians are placated. They're all celebrating online. Oh, so based. We're so back. Why are you blackpilling? Gibson knows, all this stuff like that. He also appointed John Voight, who is like the top Chabad Noahide Christian, that also interviewed Trump and is high level inside with all of these Christian-Zionist networks. But it doesn't matter. They're all ignoring that. They're celebrating the Mel Gibson. And then I post this, and then they start attacking me. They go, you're being divisive. You're running cover for Trump's Noahide Chabad appointment.
Yes.
They're like, they want me just to bite my tongue while they all celebrate and do memes about how we're so back because of Mel Gibson, complaining about the Jews hating Jesus. It's divisive to point out Trump appointing Chabadniks, basically, and Noahide frontman.
And to be fair, and what's really happening? Like, did you see the trailer for the new Superman film?
No.
That's directed by James Gunn, who's kind of I don't know. He's kind of a nasty scatological filmmaker on some level. Like I did you see the Suicide Squad movie or something that he did? Yeah, no. It's not like it's bad, but it's kind of nasty and nihilistic with a little bit of cuteness and heart thrown in for good measure. I mean, maybe that's appropriate for a movie about stock villains or whatever. I mean, but anyway, my takeaway from the Superman trailer was that they're bringing back a cute Superman, a cute Jesus.
He's Jewish. The new Superman's Jewish. You're calling him cute? Oh my God.
Jewish.
The character was, but not the actors.
Well, that might be true, but what's more important, the character or the actor? I mean, Christopher Reeve was just up there, doing his thing, but the character is fundamentally Jewish. But I think they're going to, but Corn Sweat, or I think that's his name, Corn Sweat or Corn Sweat. Anyway, he's a handsome guy. But yes, he's Jewish. I don't even think that matters. What really matters is that they're going to try to retreat to a sort of earlier stage of Hollywood. And I imagine all of these right-wing people who have complained about wokeness on YouTube for the last 7 years and made bank doing that are going to be like, we won, Hollywood's back, or whatever. They just simply don't get it.
Who wants to watch the Superman trailer? I found one that's only a minute long.
Sure.
You got something in you that this world needs.
He's a Zoomer.
Yeah, Zoomer modern
Some will
Superman.
Working in a newspaper.
Superman.
But others won't.
He works at the Daily Huffington Post.
Yeah, yes.
Some will follow you,
Superman.
but others won't.
A superhero without limits for those he saves.
An old-fashioned superhero. I want you.
They really got a blackface villain, a black guy with a blackface villain.
I want you to bring him to me.
I don't see this.
You decide how this ends. With us or against us.
Yeah, he does seem like he's fighting the black guy.
I want to know something. What makes you stand? You're not from here, but you showed me more humanity that I saw in this world.
I was
You're not
taught
from here, but you showed me more humanity.
that it doesn't cost to do good.
Jesus.
They just need to see it.
Yeah, you're saying it's Jesus. Hold on. Yeah, that line again. And think about it, too. So we got Dune and Superman, both deeply messianic movies coming out. The only blockbusters coming out are messianic movies, while we got Trump the peacemaker and the Prince of Peace returning to office to save the world.
Yes.
I made a meme of this, by the way. I'll play it in a second while we finish this.
I was taught that it doesn't cost to do good. They just need to see it.
I will make sure they look up to the sky and see hope.
Look to the sky for hope, like the man coming in the clouds.
Yes.
Look up to, hey Goyim, hey Goyslop, look up to the clouds for your hope. Son of Man coming in the clouds. He's going to come save you after the Antichrist rules. Also, the bad guy's a skinhead, white skinhead Lex Luthor, and then the bad guys, the Harkonnens in Dune, are also like Nazi skinheads. Isn't that a little interesting?
They had a black son. It's very interesting.
Right.
You know, Lex Luthor, Lex Law, Lex, and then Luther is a reference to Martin Luther.
Martin Luther.
Yeah, so I think it's a sort of discussion of a kind of Protestant reaction against Jews. Now, many Catholics claim that Luther and Protestantism in general are kind of Judaizing forces, and you know they have a perspective on that.
I just saw a rabbi claiming Protestants are more Noahide because they don't have the icons and the graven images and the saints.
I mean, I see where they're coming from, but I don't really agree. But
it may be less likely to be Trinitarian too, more open to non-Trinitarian doctrines.
Well, the Trinity certainly not in the Bible, and if you're going sola scriptura, then where does the Trinity come from? I mean,
Right.
it's actually an important question.
Yeah.
But obviously, Luther was kind of wildly anti-Semitic in many ways.
Yeah, for stupid Christian reasons, though, which defeats the purpose, and now is just used as the evil Goyim persecuting the Jews in history.
I agree. Like, we have our perspective on this, but what I think the figure of Lex Luthor is at its esoteric core, a kind of the danger of Protestant anti-Semitism, because there's no question that Superman. It's very interesting. The crypto, interesting, the little elements there. But he's Moses in the basket. He is a Jesus-like savior who's going to save us all. So is there a sort of Protestant reaction to that where he can be a villain? And I don't know if James Gunn is going to deal with this. I imagine he almost can't help himself but deal with this because it's embedded in the esoteric message of the comic.
Right. And it's no conspiracy that Superman is messianic and it was created by Jews. That's why I did the meme.
Right.
Both Superman, Batman, Jesus, and Trump, all Jewish superheroes that are not going to save us. But we've sure all been conditioned to wait around for a savior coming in the clouds. Look up at the clouds. Very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't think it's even James Gunn, because I think James Gunn probably succeeds at making a Hollywood film in terms of photography. He succeeds at witty dialogue and quips and things like that. So I think those are his fortes. What I think where you should look is, a lot of uncredited writers as well. I mean, a script in Hollywood gets refashioned many times over, and it could be like written and directed by James Gunn. The reality is that 20 other people went over that script with him.
Mm-hmm.
And
for sure.
So I mean, that's just how it works. And I am curious to see this. Is this going to be a sort of fun, interesting movie where it has a residue of esoteric messaging, or are they going to be really engaging with it, like participating in the messaging in this film? And it's an interesting question. We lived through the Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan era, where I think there was, with those two filmmakers who are both Gentiles and they have a Christian background, I think there was an attempt to make Superman. There was an attempt to almost make Superman Apollo. With Zack Snyder, although he was Christian and maybe even Catholic. There's a scene where he's behind a stained glass window talking to what appears to be a Catholic priest in terms of his garb. With Christopher Nolan, there was an attempt to make Batman a kind of right-wing conservative who was going to fight off the far right, represented by Ra's al Ghul as a sort of like Nietzschean, Evolian character who wants to like push society over the edge. Like it's already decadent. Let's just push it over the edge and kill it. And Batman, as a conservative voice, fights against it. So there was a sort of like Gentilization or Aryanization of the superheroes for a while. And I'm curious where we're going to go now.
Where was I going to go with this next? Of course, we get into film critique with Spencer on the show. Unexpected, but it was interesting turn there. Oh, okay, we got Peterson saying he's God. Oh, I wanted to show
so Peterson's now just fully on Christian, like
Let's get there in a second. Hold on, I want to play the John Voight for you.
To read the Noahide.
Oh, God.
The Noahide. So here's Trump's new eyes and ears to make Hollywood great again.
Just to let you know that I never really met the Rebbe, but I did.
Sorry.
I did have a talk with him over the phone, and I got instructions from him and encouragements to read the Noahide laws at one time, and I did, and I was deeply moved to do so. Now the Gentiles, of which I am one, have only 7 laws that were required by our Creator, while the Jews have 613 laws that they have to follow.
Don't feel left out, Mr. Voigt.
Yeah,
many of them have laws to do with the temple that's soon going to be rebuilt, but it's not there yet.
Whoa.
But anyway, it's
just everywhere you look. Trump, Third Temple cultist, Noahide, Shabbos Goys, and because he also did Mel Gibson, the hero of the controlled out Passion of the Christ, in my opinion. Yeah. The Christians are all celebrating it, attacking me because I'm pointing out, guys, you're celebrating, but he also appointed the Chabad Noahide guy. Come on.
Well, also, it's this notion that Hollywood is atheist or something. Like, that's the problem, is that Hollywood is run by a bunch of atheists. And if you think that, you are just totally delusional. Or that Hollywood is anti-Christian.
They always say that. They've got the persecution complex just like the Jews do. Like, there's always been Hollywood movies. You turn on your smart TV. Go look at your TV guide covers. Look at the top show, Chosen. Look at the new Netflix show. Look at all the History Channel shows. They're all promoting it. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. There's churches on every corner. Enough of this. There's a war on Christianity just because not everybody falls for Jewish tricks and wants to bow down to a Jewish son of God. It's not a war on you.
And, Angel Studios, I think, has really walked the tightrope, because you remember all of the just total cringe religious right movies starring Kirk Cameron and so on. That
Left Behind.
Yeah, the Left Behind series, or like Firestarter. There was one where he was like a fireman and he was saved from hell. It was like some sort of metaphor of some kind, but anyway, it was all heavy-handed. It just didn't work. And what I've noticed by Angel Studios is that I think, to their credit, they've almost like learned from the mistakes of the religious right in the past, and they've done it. They're doing something well. So I saw a movie actually with my kids, which was called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And like, I'm going to be totally fair here. It was a kind of delightful family movie about putting on a Christmas pageant in a small town. And the people who starred in the pageant were these people where it's like their dad was gone and their mom was on drugs and they're poor and they're beating people up, and they're at the end of the film, like, they're touched by Christ and the message of Christ and Mary. And so Christ enters, this Holy Spirit goes into their heart, and they sort of become better people. It's a very kind of warm film, but it's not heavy-handed and in your face. And so you don't feel insulted going into the movie theater. And I think Angel Studios have, again, I'm being fair and objective here. I think they've really like split the difference really well. They've sort of nailed it. And they're doing for Easter, they're doing just an outright kind of CGI movie about Jesus. And Isaac, the guy who was in Star Wars, he was in another one. Isaac, someone is starring as Jesus. And
so Angel Studios is the production company that makes The Chosen, the Jesus show. And they did the Bonhoeffer.
Yeah, I saw and the Bonhoeffer I saw Chosen. I watched
also the one about the kids being taken away too. The kid one. What is that one? I always forget the name, but it was premiered at Mar-a-Lago, and Jim Caviezel was the star of it.
Yes, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but it was a kind of QAnon film. It sort of rhymed with QAnon, you could say, even if it wasn't directly. The notion that there's this, evil satanic sex trafficking ring that these good Christians are stopping. I didn't see that one. I don't know if it was good or not. I watched about 20 minutes of The Chosen, and it was like a regular streaming show where I like movies that are tight in the sense of every scene is really meaningful. Like you only have 2 hours to tell the story, and that sort of forces you to make everything pack a punch. Streaming shows, what I don't like about them is it's like 45 minutes, but there's like 2 minutes of impact. So it's like you've binge watched 12 hours where 80% of it was just sort of like filler. It's like, where's the beef?
Sound of Freedom was that movie.
The Sound of Freedom, yeah. And I watched that show, and it was like Jesus as just a normal dude, like preaching. And is he going to enter Jerusalem? So they sort of made it into like it sort of reminded me of like a procedural drama or something. Like it was a television show, but they successfully did it. And I think a lot of Christians like it, and I think a lot of secular or atheist people wouldn't be offended by it. It wasn't heavy-handed or embarrassing, and thus they can watch it. So I think they're really sort of, Angel Studios sort of nailing it. And again, it's like, maybe Hollywood's over due to streaming. Maybe the liberals have ended, and this is where we are. Like the right sort of triumphed in a way. What's the last Hollywood movie that you saw, that you went to a theater to go see, and there was an event?
One maybe with Dune? My daughter and the family. A cartoon. I can't remember what it was right now.
A cartoon. Yeah, the
Dune. Dune was the last one before that.
Yeah, but kids are still going to the theater because for whatever reason. But adults, that's the question. Like, what will bring an adult to the theater? I think it was Dune. Mm-hmm. I went and saw Nosferatu, and I actually liked it. I didn't quite love it, but I very interesting. But I did that on my own on like a Tuesday afternoon or something.
Did Tuesday's discount day around you too?
Something like that.
Yeah. You mentioned Tuesday, and I only go on Tuesdays.
But it was worth it. But Hollywood's over, and it's gotten smaller, and so I think some of these Christian studios are going to sort of get in there and pick up the pieces.
Here's Jim Caviezel talking about Trump.
Right. I did not know that was in
so Passion of the Christ, Jesus, Sound of Freedom from that movie. Listen to what he says about it. He calls Trump the new Moses.
We have to do a lot more, and we got to start with Donald Trump.
What do you mean?
Well, he's got to be in there because he's going to go after the traffickers.
Do you think he understands that?
We were with
total QAnon. He's going to save the children. Take out the deep state.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so he's going to be moved to do something. I didn't know that.
He wasn't here last night. This is the new Moses. I mean, I'm still Jesus, but he's the new Moses.
Bro, that means he's the new Messiah. The Messiah is meant to be the new Moses and the King David. And the Cyrus is also a Messiah. He's all the Messiahs, guys.
Cyrus is called Messiah. It's very interesting, even though you wouldn't really pick him as a Messiah, but he obviously freed the Jews from captivity to rebuild the Second Temple. And I think that's almost the most accurate analog for Donald Trump is actually Cyrus.
Yeah. So, let's see where we at. So here's Torba. Trump is dragging around Bibi like a dog, really, and sending Mel Gibson in to flip the tables of the money changers in Hollywood, and you're blackpilling. It's like,
oh God, that guy really.
He just appointed a Noahide law Chabad ultra-Zionist, and you're white pilling.
Do you honestly think, and this is Andrew Torp I'm talking about, that Donald Trump is an anti-Zionist? Like, do you honestly believe that he's anti-Semitic? I mean, he might very well be on some casual way that.
Mel Gibson got buck broken too. He apologized. He was like, he was a drunk. He's apologized. He's made an amends. They've let him back in. Yeah. And it's still that's your hero.
Well, he probably
crying about Jesus being,
going off the rails while getting arrested.
Well, he's just on Rogan, like crying about, the Jews hate Jesus so much. That is the controlled op line. That is the talking point that is going to guarantee that we lose. And then now, because I'm pointing out, guys, why are you celebrating? There's a Chabad Noahide just got appointed, and you guys are all celebrating. They all start attacking me. They say I'm blackpilling. I'm being divisive. To tell the truth about Christianity and our Christian problem of all these Zionists selling out our country to Israel and opening our borders with their Catholic Pope and the churches, to point out that it's all fake and Jewish, that's divisive. But they say they want to work with us sometimes, that we could unite, right? And then they attack you when you point out that Trump's appointing more temple cultists. They go, Pete Hegseth, he's so based. We're so back. Look at his cool Christian tattoos. Ultra-Zionist that wants to rebuild the third temple. Like, what are you celebrating? Mike Johnson, Ultra-Zionist Speaker of the House. They're praying in Congress. We're so back. Trump said Jesus. He said there's a war on Christmas. This is the whole controlled Judeo-dialectic that everybody's engaging in.
And it's just open and in your face. I mean, I think I've mentioned this previously with you, like, because I can remember the buildup to the Iraq War, and there was almost no discussion of Zionism or the status of Israel, even though that is obviously a background cause of the Iraq War, but it was not mentioned. It wasn't mentioned that maybe like a far left or libertarian antagonist would mention that in an article, but those were sort of small. It wasn't mentioned in the liberal opposition. It wasn't mentioned in the Republican and liberal promotion of the Iraq War. But now it's almost like 20 years on where everything's unmasked in a way that's very interesting. Like you have someone who's an emissary to Hollywood who's just an outright Judeo-Christian. There's no other way of describing a Noahide advocate. That is a real Judeo-Christian. It's not just a euphemism or something. That's what he's about. And you have there is going to be talk in the next 4 years about saving Israel. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be
already that Trump campaigned on saving Israel. Women. Trump campaigned on saving Israel. That's his number one promise. Yes. And as soon as he gets in on Monday, he said at noon, waging war against anti-Semitism. And you're blackpilling?
Right.
He throws you a bone of Mel Gibson with your controlled op talking points, and then you're satisfied and you don't see the problem here?
Yeah, and the other thing, I'm sorry, but look, I sort of like Mel Gibson and I like some of his films, but I didn't watch the whole Joe Rogan interview, but some of the clips that came out of that, I mean, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
They're purposefully burning down LA.
Yeah.
Or something.
Oh yeah, it's Sodom and Gomorrah. They deserve it. It's God's punishment. That's what they're all running with, that kind of stuff. It's such a joke, man. They're clowns, just not serious people.
No. And so it's like all of that nonsense comes along with these people.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see stuff like this online. Let me shoot.
White unity is not compatible.
Yeah, here it is. So we'll see accounts say like, okay, let's stop the infighting. No more brother wars. No more pagan versus Christian bickering. They say, we'll just put that aside and then sort that out after we win. And I would argue we're never going to win. We're destined to lose unless we fix the Christian problem, because it's clearly we have the Christian problem. All of the Zionists, most all Christians completely kosher and Zionist, and what we have to not criticize that anymore. Well, all right, how about they stop making everything, insisting everything has to be about Jesus and everything, all the critiques are rooted in Christianity, and we'll stop believing that Thor is real and that Apollo is a historical figure. Deal? How about we do that? We'll put it aside and we'll worry about it later if you guys shut up and stop discrediting yourselves and playing the Judeo-dialectic with these guys, enabling the whole fraudulent paradigm. How about we do that?
Yeah. So they want white unity. So this is the opposite of E. Michael Jones. So the LARPer, I presume that's someone who sort of wears his Catholicism on his sleeve or something. Is that the LARPer?
No, he's saying that the pagans are LARPers. That's what they always say. You have to LARP as a Jewish priest into Jewish heroes, and LARP.
But isn't he
LARP as a true Israel?
Isn't that a cross in a Bible?
Yeah, but he's calling the pagan a LARPer, and then the pagan's calling him a Christ cuck. Because that's the discourse online, right?
Okay. I see.
And by the way, I'm covering this because it got 10,000 likes, but I think it's bullshit. I think this is just, hey, let's stop fighting, let's work together is code for stop criticizing Christianity. Because I'm not running around trying to make everybody bow to Thor or saying Thor's real and you have to believe in the Nordic sagas or something like that. No, we have a Christian problem, and you guys are basically enabling it and running cover for it. And when we want to criticize and address the problem, you guys get mad and go, no, it's not that. It's only the Schofield. It's only the Talmud, not the Torah. You guys run cover. And then talk about divisive.
I totally agree with you. I guess in many ways, in terms of my own life, I'm not really worried or concerned with like building a big tent coalition, which is what they all want. Like once we all unify, we're all going to win. I'm not trying to do that. And I don't think that big tent is going to be powerful unless it is ideologically
repaired and not Jewish, not based on Jewish fairy tales and the King of the Jews and the Jewish God of Israel.
Right. If it's not right, then it's not going to move in any sort of direction. We're just going to have a repeat of the first Trump experience, although this one on probably a grander scale of both, insanity and defeat. And so I'm not trying to build a big tent where we just all get along with everyone. Like I'm going to do my work. And there is some level to the conservatives, this like anti-intellectual quality of like, don't think, don't be critical. Don't examine the text.
Just go with the group.
Yeah, just go with the group. Don't offer a grandiose vision. Just shut up, and we're gonna all get on Team Trump and move forward. I'm not going to do that, and so I think this is what I'm doing, and what Mark is doing, and I think what you're doing as well. Look, we're going to pursue our intellectual ends. We're going to find allies where we can find them. If I were to, in the many cases in which I'll have discussions with like a Christian or something, I'll be respectful and reasonable and all that kind of stuff. I'm not out here to like burn bridges or take a flamethrower at anyone, but I'm just going to pursue what I'm pursuing. I'm going to pursue these ideas. And once you start talking like, we're just going to put our differences aside to be jump on the Trump train or whatever. Okay, that's fine, and maybe that will be successful to some degree.
No, they don't say the Trump train. They say like we're all going to be white first. That's what they say. Even though in the near future, most Christians are not even going to be a white. It's collapsing in European countries. It's Jewish and subversive, and all Christians are mostly Zionist and the greatest supporters of Israel and anti-racist. You're the majority. You're the fringe. They're not even representative of actual Christianity, but then they say don't criticize all of it. Only Talmud and being mad about. They want all the points, the central points in the platform to be uniting around the identity of Christianity and Jesus and being mad at Jews for rejecting their Messiah that was meant to conquer us. That's not a winning strategy. Denying Jesus is Jewish, denying that the Jews are actually Jews, denying Christianity came from Judaism, saying that they're Khazars. All of this nonsense is going to get us absolutely nowhere. It's going to destine us for destruction. And it's not even pro-white. Go ahead.
It's not pro-white. I totally agree. So it's like there needs to be a space, and in some ways you need to alienate yourself from this whole discourse, like online discourse, in order to actually pursue ideas. And they can agree with you like 20 years on, which is what very often happens. And it's fine. But I'm not trying to build a big tent. I don't want to be in that big tent. I'm not in that big tent. They don't want me in that big tent. So it's like
they think we're satanic antichrist going to hell. Like, and then they go, "You're being divisive." It's like, no, you think I'm evil if I don't believe in magical Jewish prophecies.
Right.
Talk about divisiveness. Jesus says he came not to bring peace but the sword, to turn brother against father, household against household. Christianity injected a mind virus in Europe that worships the Jewish God as always intended. Look at they can't even unite Christians that believe on all the same stuff. Look at the fights between the Protestants and the Catholics and the Orthodox, and then all the Christians and the non-believers. And then they want to say, shut up, you're being divisive, while they run cover and enable the actual Yahweh Moshiach prophecy conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And E. Michael Jones is completely correct in stating this.
Yeah, I know. To act like Christianity is race first and you're going to be race first and pro-white and stuff is anti-Christian. That's not compatible. He is right.
Yes. And you need to look at what Jesus actually said. You need to examine the Tanakh and what it is actually saying about, Japheth and Esau and these very important figures. Mm-hmm. It is not about, you are not going to be triumphant in the prophecy, in the book that you are following. That is just clearly stated. It's not even esoteric. Mm-hmm. And so, E. Michael Jones is right, except that, Trump fans don't want to hear it.
Yeah. The Groypers are all getting disavowed by the U.S. bishops. Like, when are they going to realize, that's not the path forward? Look at the Pope washing African migrants' feet, saying anti-Semitism is a sin, getting awards from World Jewish Congress, visiting the wall, saying inside every Christian's a Jew. Like, at what they just go, he's not a real Catholic, or it doesn't matter. Like, the church fathers, right. They have a million copes, and it's like they want us to LARP as Jews, as spiritual Jews, circumcised, and believe in magical Jewish prophecies and want to have their covenant, and then they lie and slander. We tell true things about Christianity, and they have lies and slanders and, divisive memes, basically.
Yes.
I'm sure you've been around for a while. Has this always, and you've not been a Christian. You've never been you've maybe always been a little anti-Christian. So you've been experiencing this division for a long time. So what are your, any other thoughts on the Christian pagan divide online?
My experience earlier on in my career, in which I was associated with white nationalism and friends with these people and meeting with them and so on, their take on it basically was, because I think white nationalism, self-respecting white nationalists, are populist at heart. They're about helping out the working man, the working white man who's beset and so on. And I get it. And so don't talk about Christianity, because that's going to basically harm our ability to reach out to all of these Republicans, in effect, who are budding white nationalists. And it's where I've looked at white nationalism as a kind of add-on addendum to the Southern strategy, in effect, but a little too explicit. But the other Republicans were, we can't quite talk about race, but what we're talking about when we talk about welfare queens and crime in your neighborhood and things like that. What we're talking about.
Or the people that hate Jesus, right?
Yeah.
The Satanists, that's supposed to be code for.
Right. But so they just wouldn't talk about it because they were ultimately populist. The white nationalist ideal target audience was like a guy with a mortgage and a pretty good job who hates Hollywood movies and he don't like these immigrants coming into his neighborhood. Like that's who they were shooting for. This type of Republican voter that MAGA captured in many ways. And I think what we have now, I mean, the big change again is this sort of unmasking, like it's overt militant Catholicism. I don't think the Groypers know that much about Catholicism, but or attend service, but
or just indoctrinated, just know what they were indoctrinated with.
If even that. I mean, I'm not even sure how many of these people were even indoctrinated in Catholicism. I mean, Catholicism is just this sort of mask that they can put on that's scary. You know, it's like Halloween. You put on this like weird mask of like, you know, a mouth with jaws and like worms coming out of your head. And you're like, whoa, you know, that's what Catholicism is to them. It like scares the Jews or scares the liberals. And it's authoritative and just kind of evil in some ways. Like that's what they like about it. And I don't think they know much of anything about it, but that's been the trajectory. There are white nationalists still around, and they talk like what I heard from white nationalists, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, et cetera. But I don't think that's a movement that's really going anywhere. I don't think there's a real future to that because all of that stuff has just been totally subsumed in MAGA. And et cetera. And so if there is a vanguard movement that's extreme and kind of fringe and pushing the envelope, et cetera, it is just outright militant Catholicism or militant Christianity. It does have a very strong Catholic vibe. I mean, I would say that 40% of them are Orthodox, 40% of them are Catholic, and 20% of them are Protestant. But they're all sort of doing the same thing. They want to grab the crucifix or the Bible and just foist it in front of a feminist, and she'll just melt like the Wicked Witch of the West in front of them. Mm-hmm. And so that's the change. And I never expected this. When I was dealing with white nationalists, I would have imagined that most people would be sort of secular, atheist, humanist talking about eugenics or something in the future. That's not what happened at all. What's happened is Christian nationalism and militant Catholicism as a kind of mask on white nationalism or as a I know I've used this metaphor. I'm kind of mixing metaphors because I'm saying they're both unmasking and masking themselves at the same time. I've got to think more about this and get it straight in my head. But that's where the movement is. It's going to just be outright religious militancy in the future. And the white part, I think, will largely dissipate or maybe even be forgotten.
Yeah, well, it already is. It's completely universal. We got a few super chats here to get caught up with, and then we're going to play a couple clips from a debate that had happened last night on Alex Stein's show.
Oh, God, I hate that guy.
Debating, is Christianity true? Yeah, I know, I'm mad. I'm like, so now you want to talk about this topic? It's like you could have talked to me for years about Jesus being fake. He had on the Happy Heathen versus Andrew Wilson, who we've both debated and been on his show debating. Mm-hmm. So, but super chat, you have one from Darmy for 18 says, yes, tell us about Apollo, Richard. By the way, I attended your great victory conference in D.C. in 2017 and your discussion with Scott McConnell afterwards at the Hotel Pub. Good times.
Interesting.
What year was that again? You said 2017. Oh, inauguration. Yeah. Indomitably Based again for 18 says, raising the status of Mel Gibson, etc. in Hollywood will just make the Jewish esoteric moralizing they push more palatable to the Goyim. Just like Top Gun Maverick, Top Goy, I don't know about that, with a white Chad allowed in Hollywood because he was waging war on
This was my and Mark Brahman's. Remember at the end of Top Gun, the white guy gets demoted in favor of a sort, I think, like an Hispanic-ish woman and so on in the final like run. Mm-hmm. But he sort of accepts his demotion and what's ever best for the team, but he's the wingman in effect. And he comes out at the end And he says he says something like, "This is your Lord and Savior speaking," and he saves Top Gun and Goose's kid at the end. So he becomes sort of the ultimate hero after being demoted. And there was also some interesting numerology you could see in when the gun is firing. Top Gun Maverick, I don't think is a massively esoteric film, but I think it is definitely stressing something. It's like the boomer or even Gen X white guy kind of still is cool. He's the only guy with guts and balls and whatever. That's Tom Cruise, Maverick. And then it does have a kind of blonde white savior at the end. Fascinating.
So, all-American goy slop, apparently. Primordial Chaos Firstborn says, I saw a post of Twitter liberals lamenting about a 2019 post from Trump celebrating Gay History Month and how they wish they could go back. Liberals wishing they could go back to old Trump? Okay. Watch the Collapse says, Adam, this is my last dono for a few weeks. You're looking sharp. If anyone listening lives in Colorado, call your senator, Tom Sullivan, and tell him you'll never vote for him again. They are trying to pass detachable mag gun ban here. Just spent $2,000 just in case. Love you, man. Keep it up. All right. Watch the Collapse. Appreciate you. And I see you in a few weeks, I guess. Darmy again says, Richard, how do we bring back Apollo and the other ancient gods?
Well, it's what we're doing, and it's interesting because the group associated with Mark Brauman Rem theory, we're engaging in a withering critique of Judaism and Christianity, Abrahamism, but also the way in which those movements have sustain themselves over centuries in very remarkable ways, particularly through pop culture. So we're sort of starting out not by LARPing as Apollo worshipers or by engaging in ritual and things like that. We're starting out as a genuine intellectual movement and just a new perspective on the past, on religion and the world. And so I think this is a movement that can be taken seriously. If we went out and LARPed as Apolloists, I'm afraid that people would roll their eyes at such a thing because it's like, what are you doing? What do you actually believe in?
You should start wearing Roman robes. That would be the LARP, right?
I never stopped.
AI Roman robes.
But I think our movement is starting critically in a way, and I think that's very important so that it can be taken seriously. It can offer crushing insights to people who aren't already inclined to seek to revive Roman gods and might never be inclined. It can still be something that's extremely useful to them. And so it's going to start as a top-down movement as well. We're not populist. We're not reaching out to dudes in the Midwest who hate immigration and inflation and whatever. The price of eggs, I'm fed up to hear. We're not reaching out to them. I understand their problems, but we're not reaching out to them. We're developing a core at the top that can eventually reach out to them in different means later on. But it's got to have a core. There has to be an element of seriousness, truth, and critique, insight there, or it's never going to move forward. It's just going to be kind of, to be brutally frank, kind of what I see from Germanic pagans. I wish them well, and I don't really have a huge problem with them, but when I've attended some of these things, it is sort of like, rolling around in the mud in the woods. And who
attended what kind of things? What are you talking about?
Oh, I was invited to all this stuff, like the Wolves of Vinland, like many years ago, and
Wolves of Vinland. What is that?
I presume it's still around to some degree. It was like a Kevin Deanna. He was at least a member. I don't think he was ever the leader, but it's a bunch of dudes,
Virginia,
some of whom have criminal backgrounds, like getting drunk and yelling and screaming in the woods. I mean, whatever.
There's a documentary about them, apparently.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I've not seen that, though.
I've never even heard of these guys.
I was just there a couple times. And you know, Stephen McNallen has done a more thoughtful version of this. And I like Stephen McNallen, and I respect him. But I don't think Germanic paganism as a sort of recreation of rituals to the degree that that's possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely not trying to recreate rituals like that. I don't even know
I'm not
all the stories and think that they're real.
That type of vibe or attitude is just extremely limiting, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I don't think it's going to appeal to people, to anyone who's not sort of already a white nationalist. Like they're already red-pilled, and they're sort of searching for something. What Apolloism is going to do at
the average guy loves the Roman Empire, so you already got your foot in the door, basically. The average guy, right? Like the meme, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Everybody thinks the Roman Empire was badass.
Every 10 minutes or something. So
they couldn't defeat the North, though. I will say that.
Well, what? A bunch of barbarian hordes.
Couldn't beat them. Couldn't conquer them. Couldn't beat them. Not without the Jewish mind tricks of Christianity.
But so yeah, I think I've adequately explained it. I'm curious to see the Andrew Wilson.
Yeah, I know. I bet you are. Here was Grok's Richard Spencer in a Roman garb in the Roman Senate.
Not AI. That's real.
No, it needs a face swap, and then that could be your new PFP.
I fucking hate Alex Stein so much. He is so dumb and so mediocre and worst of all, I can forgive just being mediocre, but like not funny. Like what is the joke of going up to AOC saying you've got a big Latina booty? What is?
It's funny because it's true.
It's harassment.
It is
basically. Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like a joke without a punchline. Like why is that funny? You're just I don't know. This guy just drives me fucking crazy. He's so dumb.
Well, I want him to have me on the show to expose the Jesus deception, since he's talking about if Christianity is true or not. On The Blaze, maybe still, which is probably going to get him in trouble.
This is what they do. This is what conservatives always do, is that they attack you for like 10 years, and then they replace you with a like knockoff version of you that they have some talk with, and they present that like this is some new revelation. This is how they always operate. So anyway, you can play it.
I was mentioned several times in this debate, by the way.
Oh, good.
Also, well, I guess. So here it is, a couple highlights about the Christian-Pagan alliance and division and unity and where the problem actually is.
But the problem here is that Christians won't just live and let live. I got invited to speak.
Right? Christians won't. They think we're evil, satanic, antichrist if we don't bow down to the King of the Jews and believe in Jewish prophecies and worship the God of Israel. Your ancestors are demons. You're LARPing like your ancestors. You need to LARP as a spiritual Jew. That's their attitude, right? It says, do not, in the Bible, it literally says, like, you can't yoke with a non-believer. Also, it says that they can't. You can't be a true Christian and ally with people that think Christianity is fake and Jewish, basically.
Who is this guy? What is his name?
It's Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, now going as Happy Heathen.
Okay, so he's a Germanic pagan?
He's an anti-Christian, I guess. I don't know if he calls himself a pagan.
He's calling himself a heathen? I would presume he's worshiping Odin or something. I don't know. Yeah. I was just curious before I listened to him. I've never heard of him before.
Apparently he believes in like Atlantis and Hyperborean, or at least talks about that type of stuff.
Atlantis is like you're believing in Plato, who created Christianity. This is the typical like loop that they all go through. But anyway, go on.
Okay.
Get a
interesting story he says here.
America First rally. Stu Peters was there. I spoke, and then Stu Peters gets up on the platform. There's about 400 people there. About 50 of us weren't Christians. If you don't believe in Jesus, you can go straight to hell. I tried to work with Christians, but if we don't worship Jesus, you don't work with us. And if we tried to go into battle with you, you'd shoot us in the back. That's
true. And I'm gonna give you some leeway here, but
that's true. So don't give me this bullshit. They says they'll shoot us in the back. They obviously do. I'm trying to expose the actual conspiracy, the actual problem, the Christian question, and they all do is they slander and attack and blackball and lie. Shooting in the back, running cover for what's actually going on. Actually, running cover for the Christian-Zionist problem.
Into battle with you, you'd shoot us in the back.
That's true. And I'm gonna give you some leeway here, but let me explain why that's true. Okay. And I think you're gonna have to agree with me here.
Let me.
You're cool. Yeah,
if Christianity disappeared tomorrow.
Hold on, that's a different point. I want to play this one.
Including Jeff's own ethical frameworks, which Jeff's upset. He says we can't work with Christians. They'll shoot us in the back. I agree with Jeff. We will, right? In a second, right? But my counterclaim:
shoot us in the back in a second.
Is because we have different normative ethical frameworks. The reason we do is because Christian ethics, I believe we can make a case is superior to all other ethical systems on planet Earth right now.
It's not because of ethics. It's because you guys believe in the King of the Jews and the Jewish God and that the Jews were ever chosen. It's not a disagreement over ethics. We can come together with white Christians on certain issues, right? Borders and policies and stuff. But
that's not even fucking Christian ethics. Give me a break.
I know. Jesus what they're promoting isn't even Christian.
Walk across to his credit, in a way, I kind of admire Christ for his sincerity. But he would walk to the border bringing water for a poor child who's traveling with her single mom to get a job in America. And he would bring them water and give them shelter. I mean, I'm not even criticizing Christ. I admire the sincerity of an act like that. But that is what Christ is teaching. And don't fucking tell me that Christ is teaching you about how to expel the barbarian, destroy your enemies, and kill OnlyFans chicks. Because we actually have the Bible in which Christ does not want to punish OnlyFans chicks. He does want them to sin no more. It's very true. But the entire setup of Christian ethics is vis-a-vis the Pharisees. That is, rule followers, separate ones. That is, you could interpret that in a way as Jewish ethno-nationalist, or something like the Bibi Netanyahu's racist Jews in a way. That's the villain of the Gospels, and Jesus is opposed to them. So I don't know what to tell you. I actually find the message of Jesus very compelling, even if I am ultimately someone who would reject it.
Turn the other cheek. Love thy enemy.
It's fucking straight what Jesus was about. You know, give me a fucking break.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Jesus of the Gospels because I've actually read it and I take him seriously.
All of them. Every single one of them, including Jeff's own ethical frameworks, which I guarantee you follow a lot more closely with Christian ethics than they do with.
When did Jesus shoot someone in the back?
No, he says
that's what
if they turn the other cheek. They say if they ask to go 1 mile, go 2.
Exactly. And again, I'm actually being generous here, but also this is my own belief. I sort of I get it, and I do find there's something deeply compelling about someone as sincere as Jesus Christ, particularly depicted in the Gospel of John, which is the best one, in my humble opinion. But throughout the Gospel story, he's not shooting anyone in the back. That's actually what the Pharisees are doing. So you are sympathizing with the villains of the Gospels because you don't get it. You just don't get it, do you? It's incredible. I almost want to defend Jesus vis-a-vis these Christians because he is a fascinating figure. and deeply compelling. There's a reason why everyone still talks about Jesus, but they don't talk about the Pharisees because they're sort of like annoying villains. You're a Pharisee, Andrew. I'm sorry. That is who you would have been in the Gospel of John.
Why is he a Pharisee?
He's a rule-following, like, asshole, which is exactly what the separate ones, the white nationalist Jews, were. And, like, Jesus would never shoot someone in the back. He would go hug the heathen.
It says, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, so practice and observe everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. The Pharisees sit in Moses' seat and observe everything they tell you, but don't do what they do.
That's very interesting because that's very layered. What is that from, actually?
Matthew 23. Yeah.
Oh, say again?
Woe to the scribes and the Pharisees. Jesus in Matthew 23.
Oh, in Matthew. Okay, interesting. So that's what Jesus says about them. Yeah. They just don't. I'm sorry. Like, Andrew Wilson's a nice guy. I don't have anything against him personally, but he'll
shoot you in the back. He said he'll shoot you in the back.
Well, I'm not. It's kind of weird how I'm the heathen, yet I won't shoot him in the back.
Like, right. Well, the pagan gods are tolerant of other gods to a degree, but the monotheistic Jewish God is jealous and wants to conquer all of the world. And the Judaism, it was the original anti-pagan religion, and now the Christians have taken up that cause and are waging war on paganism, which is their own ancestors' cultural theology and myths. And the Jews are celebrating it, and all Christians are mostly kosher, and they're just running cover for the whole thing.
Yeah.
A little more here. Hold on.
Any pagan ethical framework in existence today. I guarantee it. So the thing is like, this is what the crux of the of this argument now is Jeff, if Christian ethics is going to get replaced, you want to replace it with deism. But under deism, things like abortion are fine. Under deism, things like
not necessarily
this there's nothing wrong with it.
You can make deist, intellectual, secular arguments against abortion.
Eugenics is fine.
But we're not saying we're going to follow the ethics of Odin and Thor either in like our law. They go, what are you going to replace it with? Adam didn't answer. I can guarantee you I did answer. He just claims you don't answer. One of their little tricks they do. I say we're going to have everything that we have now. Democracy, laws, lawmakers, voting, but without the magical Jewish fairy tales to be based on. What did we have before? Then even Alex Stein says, well, we had morals and laws like in smart people before the Bible. They go, no morals. We would have nothing. We can't have society without the Jews, and our salvation comes from the Jews. Like, that's the Christian take.
Yes.
So one more thing on like the Christian pagan divide. Oh wait, no, this one.
And these people that and they all say, Nick, you're dividing us. Nick, you're subversive. Nick, damn right. We are dividing the pagans right out. If you're a pagan in the year of our Lord, 2018, you're too stupid. You're too heretical to be in the movement. And so I will gladly divide you right out. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how pro-white you are. Out. We don't need.
See, that's the Christian stance. There's your Christian influencer leadership happening. So tell me who's because this is one of the things they always try to say at me. He's being divisive. He's attacking white people. Christianity is anti-white. Christianity is divisive. Christianity is Jewish and being used to subvert us and is the problem. And you guys are just all saying, oh, stop criticizing it. Just be mad at them for rejecting Jesus. That's the real problem. They worship Satan. They worship the devil. No, they don't. Everything you guys say is literally a lie and a cope. And it's destined to lose. And we're not going to win and then sort it out. If we don't solve the problem of Christianity, we're never going to win. We're destined to be destroyed. That's my view.
if you don't mind my jumping in, I want to watch a little more of the Alex Stein debate. I'm kind of curious what this pagan guy, what his response is.
Sure. Here's a little more I have highlighted.
Okay.
Well, I had this saved too. What is this?
We would coexist with the Christians if we could, but we can't because you want to kill us because we don't believe in your God.
Yeah, there's a problem though.
And then he says, "Yeah,
let me."
Be cool. Yeah,
if Christianity disappeared tomorrow, we could simply go back to the beautiful, powerful, high ethics that we had before Christianity ever existed.
What were they?
What do you mean, what were they?
Well,
Haven't
so
you ever
here,
done any studying?
yes, I have. This is what I'm saying. So,
what were they, Richard? There was Roman ethics. There was Greek.
You can go
there
back
was
to Roman law. That's actually the gift to the world. But you obviously can look at Greek philosophy for ethics.
Right.
Yes.
Or every culture around the world had their own set of ethics and morals.
They weren't necessarily written down. Like there's no doubt that the Germanic tribes had a very strong ethos and an ethical system, even if it wasn't written down or codified. I mean, they were they weren't just like crazed lunatics or something. They were actually family oriented and tribe oriented and so on. There's nothing, to criticize about them ethically speaking.
Right. I mean, they weren't perfect, but we're also not going to base everything. Well, it says Apollo did this, so like that's what our law is going to be. Like to act like we're even suggesting that, or like it's even a comparison. Like they think all of their Jewish stuff and miracles and books are true and actually historical. We're all smart enough to know they're only just, symbolic, mythical stories with lessons associated with them.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
So the ethical framework Jeff would use for all of Western society to replace Christian ethics would be the ethical framework of blank what? Of
it
what?
would be the
and we don't even have a system that's like totally under Christian ethics right now. We don't live under the Torah law, 10 Commandment law.
I guess they want to.
Yeah, he's Eastern Orthodox too. They're like,
it would just be like Roman law and Aristotle or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how like the divisiveness between the sects too, where like Orthodox says the Catholics aren't real Christians. They're all the Protestants they shit on all the time. The only Christians that get it are the smallest percentage, but like that's the path forward apparently. Endless fighting over differences in Jewish fairy tales and how to follow the Jewish religion the correct way. And they act like the Eastern Orthodox Christians are like the most based and masculine and stuff. They're arguably the most kosher. They're closest to the original Jewish sect of Christianity. Jay Dyer's bragging about following temple liturgies and that they're the true Israel and they're the extension of the Pharisees and their priests dress like the Pharisees. Their leaders LARP as Jewish wizards with big old rabbi beards and funny hats and robes and scepters. And they go, you guys are LARPers, like as if I'm dressing up in the woods in animal skins or something. It's just everything about it is a lie and bad faith. This is a debate, by the way. Is Christianity true? And the whole time, Andrew tried to deflect and attack paganism or attack something he said once. It's never a discussion about the truth claims of if Christianity is historical and real. It was no talk of that at all, which is by design. Sorry, I'm ranting a little bit.
I call it loosely the ethical framework of the deist.
What?
And like the Bible.
That's
again.
Well, Andrew, I'm not even trying to take Jeff's side, but I think we could all agree that society would have some sort of ethical norms that people would agree to, right? I mean,
yeah, but we're talking about the superiority.
You shouldn't steal. You shouldn't murder.
Let me get you to understand the track here. So the idea here is Jeff's upset. He says we can't work with Christians; they'll shoot us in the back. I agree with Jeff. We will, right? In a second, right? But my counterclaim is because we have different normative ethical frameworks. The reason we do is because Christian ethics, I believe, we can make a case is superior to all other ethical systems on planet Earth right now.
And I believe that we can have other, better, more superior ethics.
All of them. Every single one of them. including Jeff's own ethical frameworks, which I guarantee you follow a lot more closely with.
But then the argument goes, well, how can you prove that yours are better? Ours come from God, and our God's real. Like, and then it comes back to that, the transcendental. That's where they'll
The
go.
other thing is deism is a sort of post-Christian secular like washout of Christianity. It's kind of odd that he's gesturing towards this. I don't know if he wants to find the religion of the founding fathers or something. And with many of them, particularly Jefferson and some other major figures, like deism probably would be the best description of what they're doing. But I don't know. It's funny. I think there are better responses to a Christian nationalist than deism.
Deism, right? I wouldn't have said that. I'm pretty sure he claims he asked me the same question. I didn't answer, but I'm pretty sure I would have said that we would have like pretty much what we have now, minus all of the magical Bible thumping and all of the Jesus stuff. Or what we had before Christianity, elements from, wherever we could argue that we think is good, from the Greeks, the Romans, from the Asians, from wherever, whoever had the best like moral arguments and ideas is what I would say it would be based on, which is all morality and ethics is ever based on. What you think, yours is just whatever the church fathers say it is. Basically, that's your appeal to authority. Guys dressed up like wizards in robes. Although maybe you agree, robes, society should be ruled by men in robes, according to Apollo. Oh, there's a super chat here. Is Prometheus more based than Apollo? Says Lawrence.
No. Okay. Prometheus is a proto-Jewish figure.
Sorry, Dharma, you got to send more than $1 for more questions like that. We got to wrap it up here. My Odyssey account for 50 says I'm catching up on the last few streams. We'll watch this one later. The last few have been fire. Definitely watch them. Return to Myth 98 for 25 says one of the biggest problems of Christianity and Islam is that it prioritizes following their God for the sake of pleasing their God and calling themselves good followers. Ethnic gods and faiths around the world encourage you to be the best sons and daughters of your ancestors.
Yes.
There is a slavish, like, follower worshiping to. I never liked that vibe. It's very slavish. Return to Myth again says, I've been watching you since August 2019. Thanks for all you do. Thanks. That's 6 years, almost 6 years. That's awesome. Richard, I know we're way over time. I told you 1.5 to 2 hours, but there's like probably one more minute of this if you want to see any more.
Just play the next minute, but don't interrupt it.
All right. With Christian ethics than they do with any pagan ethical framework in existence today. I guarantee it. So the thing is like, this is what the crux of the of this argument now is Jeff, if Christian ethics is going to get replaced, you want to replace it with deism. But under deism, things like abortion are fine. Under deism, things like this there's nothing wrong with it. Eugenics is fine. All of those things are fine under deism. All of them.
Not necessarily.
Your fallacy.
Yeah, not necessarily at all, right?
That you want to state that there was no ethics before Christianity.
No,
I say that's nonsense.
I never said that, Jeff.
No, his argument that there was ethics, but they weren't good. They didn't work and they weren't good enough. That's what he would say. But I would argue that the Christian ethics has led to a whole lot of not good. Look at the fruits of where Christianity has led us today. Look at where we're at. Look at the West. Look at the Israel Jewish influence. All right, that's the end that I have highlighted from there. The rest is crap. So
I'm not sure Jeff is the best carrier of the torch. I again, why don't they just have you or me?
I DM'd Stein because Stein follows me and he even retweeted me once, like a month or so ago, a joke I made about him being on an Illuminati baseball team because there were some pro athletes on his Little League team. But I'm like, dude, you're talking about Christianity being fake? Like, hello, I want to talk to you about the Jesus conspiracy.
Yeah, but they just have some kind of MAGA dude on. I mean, it's just, I was up there with Stu Peters. Or it's like, yeah, that's your problem.
Yeah, good one.
Oh, man.
All right, well, thanks for the time. Interesting talk. We got a huge week next week with Trump getting in. We'll see how it all plays out. It's definitely entertaining. Your final thoughts and where people can find you? Thanks for coming on. Oh, I just lost him. I hope he heard some of that. We had a disconnect. Huh. It says he's still there. Maybe I'll hang up and call back just so he can say bye. Appreciate all the support tonight, guys. Huge shout out to Indomitably Based. Uh-oh, did his internet cut or something? It's not my internet. Okay, there he is. Yo, are you there?
I think I am. Yeah, go to Twitter, Richard B. Spencer. You can learn about that. And it's Substack. It's actually radixjournal.substack.com. We're calling it Alexandria, but you can find me there. Subscribe. I do long talks twice a week, thrice a week, in fact. Once more on Sundays, where we study an important text. We're actually reading Genesis now. And so, yeah, I would encourage everyone who's interested in the stuff to, you can follow me on Twitter, of course, but subscribe.
Mm-hmm. And one last super chat, because it's for 50 from my boy Bow Hunter. I almost said Boy Hunter. Bow Hunter 88 says, upon discovering Scythian ancestry of Europeans, it is interesting that they despise merchant and priestly classes for their propensity to deception and subversion. How right they were, which explains why their history is largely buried. I know nothing about that. Do you have any comment? Or
I don't have any thoughts on that, but
right. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. Thank you, Bow Hunter. Thank you, everyone.
Well, I'll talk to you soon, Adam.
And thank you, Richard. And we'll be in touch. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Appreciate you all. Interesting show. Interesting discussion. I'll be back possibly tomorrow, if not Sunday or Monday. I got the big show about Germans, anti-Christian Germany coming up, the Volkish Spirit thread. We'll be covering for sure the inauguration of Trump on Monday. I will be live streaming that. And I hope you all be there. Thank you for the support. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if I don't see you tomorrow, everybody have a nice weekend. Take care. Sorry for the loud noise. Thank you, Wheeze and the Juice. Sorry, Zionist. Where is that? Should have just disappeared again. Zionist cuck. Did I miss your Rumble rants? I'm going to go look. I'm not seeing him. I'm scrolled all the way up to the top, and I'm not seeing him. Let me try refreshing real quick. I didn't even see any Rumble rants. I thought the Rumble rants were broken. Where are you guys at, Rumble? 500 people watching on Rumble. And not $1 in a super chat. Besides Zionist cuck. Unless everybody sent them in and I'm missing them all. Yeah, still see no super chats. So sorry, Zionist cuck. I don't know what happened. And sorry to anybody else if anybody else isn't showing up. Big shout out, Bow Hunter, Darmy, Return to Myth, My Odyssey account. Huge shout out to Indomitably Based, Lawrence, Bloodstained. Oh, I think I missed that one. Primordial. Thank you, bro. I saw Spencer retweeted you. Spencer's about to hit 100K on Twitter. Anybody in the mood for, I think I'm going to get Swiss, mushroom and Swiss burger. I'm craving one of those for some reason. Little stupid inside joke. Shalom Goyim. Shalom, everybody. So Christians admit they're the divisive ones and they want to stab you in the back, huh? Why am I not surprised?